A sales objection that you're going to run into a lot is when the prospect says, "We don't have budget." And here are some responses that can help you to deal with that. First, this objection can come up at two different points in the process, and there are different ways to deal with it depending on where you are. This objection can come up in an early sales process stage, and we'll deal with this objection differently at this point versus when it comes up at the end when we're trying to close. Now note, in this diagram, there are three main stages that we might take a prospect through in the early part of our sales cycle. There's the initial contact, which might be a cold call, 2 to 5 minutes. There might be an appointment that we're trying to schedule, a 15, 20, 30-minute meeting, and then a third stage of a presentation. These can sometimes happen at the same time. We might have the appointment at the same time as the initial contact, or we might give a presentation at the same time as the meeting. But these are three main stages that salespeople commonly take a prospect through. Now, the key thing to note is when you're going through these stages, your real goal is not necessarily to sell the product, it's to sell the next step of your sales process. And if you really fully embrace that and never forget that the fact that the prospect does not have budget to spend it's almost completely invalid. You could almost say to a prospect that's an invalid objection because it's really not a reason to move forward. If you're at the cold call, the initial contact, and the prospect says we don't have budget to spend, that's not a valid reason to move to the next step. Now, a valid reason might be I don't like you. I don't want to buy what you're selling. I don't want to waste my time with you. There are plenty of real objections that are a valid reason to not continue. But the fact that the prospect does not have budget to spend is an invalid reason to move through these stages. Now, of course, you want to be diplomatic and you don't want to directly tell the prospect that, but you can push back. And so let me give you some responses. If this objection comes up in the very first sales cycle stage, the initial contact, think of this as a cold call, a conversation over the phone, maybe you're talking to someone at a networking event. What you can do is you can redirect to one of your pre-qualifying questions. The goal here with this tactic is not to resolve the objection. It's not to make them realize they do have budget. It's not to get them to agree that the budget is not an issue. It's more to keep the conversation going. Our goal here is to keep moving forward in that conversation and just get away from their concern there. So they say, we really don't have any budget to spend, and this is, we're just really starting to talk to someone. And we could say something like, "Oh, hey, I understand. But if I could ask you real quick, are you currently using any automation tools to manage your inventory levels?" An example of a pre-qualifying question there. At which point, most likely the prospect is going to answer that question, and then we can either drill into that answer, follow up with another question, and hopefully get away from the topic of budget. Another version of that, if you want to be more, if you want to try to diffuse a little bit more, is you could say something like this: "Hey, I understand, and listen, I want you to know I'm actually not trying to sell you anything at this point. I don't even really know if you're a good fit for what we do. That's why I was just calling you with a question. If I could ask you real quick, are you currently using any automation tools to manage your inventory levels?" So that is a redirect option to get away from the budget. You can also redirect to your pain points that you resolve. So you might say something like, "Hey, I understand. When I talk with other manufacturing companies, they often express challenges with it taking too long to process orders, and there are often errors in the orders that they do process. Have you seen any of those?" So this is, again, redirecting away from that budget concern. And now those are tactics to use when you haven't even really begun the conversation yet. We haven't talked at all. But now you might be at the end of the call and you've asked them some questions, you've had some interaction, and you're trying to close for that next step, and they say, "You know what, it doesn't make sense for us to get together because we don't really have budget." So here's what you could say when that comes up late in that initial contact. "Hey, I understand, and I want you to know we're really not trying to sell you anything at this point. I don't even know if we're a good fit. I tell you, our goal is really to to simply open the dialogue between our two companies, so that down the road when the budget does become available, you'll know who we are and what we have to offer, and then we can maybe talk at that point. So with keeping all of that in mind, uh, is it okay if I put 15 to 20 minutes on your calendar next week to have a brief conversation? And again, we know we go into that conversation knowing that you don't have any budget to spend. It's more of an introductory conversation. Is that something you're okay with? That's a response late in the call. Now, that this objection can come up later in your sales process. So let's say we do schedule the appointment, the meeting. We meet with them for 15, 20 minutes. We're learning more about them. They're learning about us. And they say, this is all great, but we really don't have any budget to spend. Now, most likely, let's say that this is before you've really shown them what you have to offer, and that might be done in a presentation, in a demonstration, and so you could, let's say, before you've had your chance to be on stage, you can respond with something like this. The thing is you want to get that opportunity, because that might get the prospect to see their budget in a different way, or you might be better positioned to truly deal with that objection of budget, no budget, head on, if you've delivered and displayed how you can help. So you want to get to that presentation. Now, I will point out that if they are expressing budget concerns, you do want to be cautious about the amount of time that you spend in giving this presentation. For example, you wouldn't want to fly across the country and send a whole team of people and spend a weekend building out your presentation if they've said that they don't have any budget. But if you can deliver a quick presentation and not put a lot of time investment in it, then you still want to do this even if there is that budget concern. So that's getting into the subject of qualifying and pre-qualifying a bit. But if you do want to still try to get around this objection, here's something you can respond with. Okay, listen, I'd like to ask that you do me a favor, and can we hold off on the concern of budget right now? The reason why is we're not trying to close the sale with you. So the topic of you not having budget, it's not a real reason to not keep moving forward. So all we're trying to do right now is clearly identify, are we a good fit for you? Can we help you? And that's why we'd like to spend 20 to 30 minutes to show you some more information on how we can help based on what you've shared with us so far. Now, bear in mind, we'll continue to move forward and be aware that you have concerns around your budget. We won't invest too much of our time, and we're not going to take too much of your time. But at the end of our next meeting, once we've shared more information about us, we can then agree and identify in terms of the level of fit and what direction to go in terms of pace. Maybe there is no fit and we close the file and agree to be friends. Maybe we do identify that we can help, but it's going to have to be next year. So we can definitely agree to that at the end of that meeting, and then from our standpoint, this will be productive because we've educated you on who we are and how we can help. That way, when the budget becomes available or you're doing your budget planning, you can keep us in mind. Because if we don't do this now, then when the budget's available or when you're doing your budget planning, if we haven't really shared this information with you, then it's not going to do us any good. We're in this endless cycle of we reach out when the budget has already been planned and you don't know who we are because we haven't really had this time to present to you. Does that sound reasonable? So that's the response there when you're really trying to close for the presentation. Now, the other time when this can come up is you're at the end of the sales cycle, right? And hopefully you've asked questions about budget, so this doesn't really come up when you're trying to close. But let's just say you've done everything, right? You've delivered the presentation, you've asked them a bunch of questions, you've gathered a bunch of information. This is when you might want to try to overcome that objection, right? Because everything we were doing before was redirecting. We're not addressing the budget. We're just trying to schedule the meeting. We're asking them more questions. Here, we're going to try to deal with it head on. So the tactics are get to the root of the concern. They said they don't have budget. Is it that there is okay? what you're trying to sell costs a certain thing, and there's physically not money available to purchase from you. Or it could be something else. Maybe they don't want what you sell, or they don't see value in what you sell. So I mean, there is some discovery you can do there in terms of trying to identify, hey, listen, if this was free, would you still want it, right? And is it that, or is it that the cost that it costs, you don't see you don't see the value that it provides worth what we're asking for? Is it that your budget is tied up in other stuff, right? So getting to the real root of, do they see value in what you're offering? Then looking for budget displacement, right? Do they want what you have, but the money's already being spent on something else? Can we shift the budget from somewhere else and get rid of something in order to fund what you're trying to sell? Take a closer look at the return on investment. What is the return on investment that you're offering them? And this could be the first step in building a business case for trying to find that budget, to allocate the budget. Identify the sources of where this would be funded. So if you agree that yes, they see value, yes, they want this, and yes, the price is right, then the budget's not available. Okay, well, what budget does it come from? And then so identifying what budget it would be paid for out of, and then identifying what the status is and what the future looks like for that budget. You could then, if you identify that this is the budget that would pay for this, then you could look for other sources of funding. Is there another budget that we could look at to fund this if we agree that it makes sense, it's a fit, and it can help? And then, so if you've gone through all of that and you're still at a point where there is no budget available, we want it, but there's no budget available, then you might begin to reach a point where you sort of walk away. You don't walk completely away. It's almost like you more just put it on pause. And this is where you begin to plant a seed for the future. So you sort of concede. And then you say, okay, well, so it looks like if you agree that this is something you want, is this something that you want to plan for in the future? So what does the budget planning cycle look like? When would you want to try to look at this seriously? When would we need to plan for that? What do you need from us? What are the next steps there? So planting a seed for the future. That is those are some quick tips on how to deal with that objection. If you like that, and if you find that helpful, and if that helps you to see things in a different way, you might want to check out more of what Sales Scripter has to offer. And just to give you an idea of what Sales Scripter is, one half of Sales Scripter is a sales methodology. So a lot of what I just showed you is part of our dealing with objections portion of our methodology. We also have all sorts of other modules. A lot of what I just went through is related to our gatekeepers module, our qualifying module, our looking for prospect pain module, cold calling, sales processes. So we touched on a lot there, but there's core sales training topics in all these areas. Now, the other half of what Sales Scripter is actually a piece of technology. It's a prospecting platform software application that actually provides you with call scripts, objection responses, meeting scripts, key questions, marketing tools, voicemail scripts, cold email templates. And the way that most people really consume what we have to offer is they might access and incorporate our methodology into how they do that. And the way that they access our methodology is through we have lots of ebooks and books online, training videos, live training, coaching, consulting. And so a lot of salespeople come to us and actually access our methodology actually at no cost through YouTube and through our downloadable ebooks. A lot of managers come to us and actually purchase our methodology so that they can then provide it to all their salespeople. Now, we give away a lot of our training for free, because our hope is, if you like that and if you're going to use our methodology, you might want to check out our software platform, because our software completely aligns with our methodology. For example, if you like how we teach you to deal with objections, you could do all of that without using our software. You just have to remember the objection responses. You have to create different Word documents or sales tools on your own. Well, you know what? We have software that does all that. It does all that automatically and displays it at the right time at the right place for either yourself or your salespeople. So you might want to check that out. And just to share with you some resources, I mentioned our methodology. You can get a glimpse of that through some free ebooks on our website. They're all downloadable for free. Just sign up for our newsletter. You can actually also purchase a paperback book that touches on all these topics called the Cold Calling Equation. There's actually a chapter in the Cold Calling Equation on objections, and it outlines some of what we just went through here. Also, there's a chapter on gatekeepers, asking questions, sending cold emails. The good thing about the book, the Cold Calling Equation, is I have a lot of ebooks that are on my computer that I don't know where they are. I don't know how to access them quickly. Yes, most of them I got for free, and that's great. But what I like about having physical books is sometimes you want that real book that you can read. With our book, it's a great reference book to stick on your desk and flip to when you're actually doing prospecting. So check that out on Amazon. We do have a full sales training, new hire or sales development training program. This is actually all on YouTube for free, and it's organized in this way, but it's organized in 4 weeks, so you can actually digest different pieces. It's all put together in a particular order so that it all makes sense and builds one module onto the next. Again, you can access this on YouTube for free, or we do provide it in a live format for your salespeople. The application basically works in that the software will ask you, what do you sell, how does it help, what problems do you fix, what questions should you ask. So the software interviews you, and it uses all your information to basically build out your library of sales tools, objection responses, whatnot. Now, if you're a manager and you have a team of people, you only have to answer and enter information for your products and your company once, and then your salespeople never have to go through and answer anything. They just are displayed with all of the scripts and documents. Scripts such as cold call scripts, email templates, voicemail scripts, objection responses, an interactive script tool that actually displays exactly what to say next while someone's on the call, in terms of either this is where you can access objection responses, voicemail scripts. If you like any of that, here are 4 steps that you can go through. Go to our step 1, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe, and check out some of our videos. Go to our website, download our ebooks. You can sign up for Sales Scripter to begin the process, build out all your scripts, objection responses, and whatnot. It's $49 per user per month, $29 if you do an annual subscription. We do offer a 30-day 100% money-back guarantee if you're not happy. You could also contact us directly for sales coaching, sales consulting, sales training, and here is my personal info. If you have any questions, want any other help, hope this was helpful. Good luck. Happy hunting.